Welcome to the Legal View. I'm David Hogg.
And I'm Aaron Gartland. Tonight's guest is local Alpha insurance agent Gene Mills. And among other things, we're going to be talking about life insurance, homeowners insurance, and auto insurance.
American law is complex and not always easily understood, so a little help and advice can go a long way. The attorneys of Hogg and Gartland Law Firm in Dothan present Legal View.
The Legal View with Hogg and Gartland.
Insurance is important in today's society, and having homeowners insurance, car insurance, life insurance is a necessity for the average household. A big component of insurance is to protect the breadwinner, replace the earnings of a breadwinner with life insurance, to protect the driver if they're in an accident. There are different types of insurance that come into play, and our guest is going to talk with us about that. Aaron, I guess you've had cases, I know I have, where car insurance was an important aspect of the case. Just like we've had cases where homeowners insurance was important. Someone lost a house. Those kinds of cases come up from time to time, and you just can't overstate the importance of having a solid insurance program. Would you agree?
I would agree wholeheartedly, and to take it a step further, that's another advantage of, or another part of it, I would think, is dealing with someone regarding your insurance needs that you know and trust, and that's certainly an advantage to dealing with a local agent. Wouldn't you agree with that, David?
Oh yeah, somebody that you can trust, someone that you can get in touch with if you have questions, or when that claim has to be made. That's the all-important time that you need to be able to get a hold of someone.
Yeah, and one other aspect about that, as we progress through life and different stages of life, your insurance needs change, and that's another advantage with dealing with a local insurance agent is they can sit down with you, go over your circumstances and your family situation, and make sure you have the insurance that you want and need in place.
One of the parts of automobile insurance that we were talking about has to do with uninsured motorists. I know I've seen several cases where my clients had uninsured motorist coverage, and if they had not had enough uninsured motorist coverage, they would have not have been fully compensated for their injuries. And I'm sure you've seen that happen as well, Aaron.
Yeah, David, absolutely. It's so important in today's life, in my opinion, and I think you would agree, and I'm sure our guest tonight would agree with that assessment, and we'll talk about it with him further. But David, basically what you're talking about is a situation where you're involved in a wreck, a car accident, and the other driver's at fault but doesn't have insurance, or they may not have enough coverage to fairly compensate the person for their claim and their injuries and damages. So
yeah, the Alabama law doesn't require the driver to have a great deal of liability insurance that will pay for the other person's damages. I think $20,000 is about the maximum.
Yeah, that's right, and that's something we'll talk in further detail with Gene tonight about the minimum requirements under Alabama law. And even though it is a requirement that everybody in the state have automobile insurance, unfortunately, not everybody does, or they may have insurance, but again, not have enough insurance coverage. And David, again, the cases that you're talking about, and we've handled several over the years, where again, we have a client that was in a wreck and it's not their fault, and they have injuries and damages, whether it's medical bills, lost wages, pain and suffering, and those types of damages, and either the driver that's at fault, again, either they do not have insurance at all, or they don't have enough insurance to fairly compensate the claim. And in that situation, if you have uninsured or underinsured motorist coverage, it's basically the same thing, but just depending on the circumstances, you're, it triggers a different application of it. But again, in that situation, you would make a claim on your own insurance. In other words, the uninsured or underinsured motorist coverage that you have.
Right. And so it's important to have an agent who will sit down and talk with you about all these things and help you make a decision about the coverage that you need. And our guest, Gene Mills, is that kind of a man.
Gene, welcome to the program. How are you today?
I'm blessed. Thanks for having me.
Good, good. We're glad you could join us. And I would just like you, for the benefit of our everybody, just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Gene Mills, I've been working with Alpha Insurance now for about 5 years. Been in the business for about 10 years. Work in Ashford, which I'm sure everyone knows where that is, about 8 miles east of here. I offer all lines of insurance, home, auto, life insurance. We do some dental insurance, medical insurance, anything that you can insure, we can do. Work for a great company. They've been in business for almost 70 years, and they're a Farmers Federation, so of course we're real big on supporting the farmers.
Being in the business for 5 years, you get to meet a lot of people. And, one of the things about life insurance is that you have an opportunity to walk in sometimes with a pretty big check for people, and it comes at a really important time. Have you had a chance to do that yet?
Oh yeah. I've been actually in the life insurance business for 10 years. Been in the property and casualty for 5, and have delivered checks, and of course the beneficiaries always wish it was more.
Oh, yeah.
90% of America is underinsured when it comes to life insurance.
Wow. So you have a chance to sit down with people and help them map out their needs and help them determine how much life insurance they need, for example?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I always tell my customers, of course, the most important thing is to do what is financially best for them. That's the number one thing. There's no reason to buy something if you can't afford to pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
It don't help you as a customer or consumer. It doesn't help me as a salesman. I want to help the customer as much as I can for what's comfortable for their budget.
Mm-hmm. When it comes to life insurance, there are basically different types of insurance, and we've heard some of these words kicked around from time to time, but there's term, and then there's cash value building policies.
Yeah.
And can you kind of tell our viewers the basic difference between term and a cash value policy?
Sure. Term insurance, the easiest way to explain that is it's like renting a house. For an example, if you rent a house for 10 years and your monthly payment is $500, for 10 years you make that payment and you move. What happens?
Well, then you turn the house over to somebody else and you don't own it. All your money's gone that
Exactly.
you paid in rent.
That's just like term insurance. It's affordable. You get more coverage, and when you're young and you're raising a family, a lot of times that's the best way to go for a young family, because you get more coverage for your money. Then you have whole life insurance or cash value policy. It's more expensive, but it's actually it has living benefits along with the policy, such as cash value, paid up insurance. You can suspend payments in the future if times get tough, where term insurance, you can't do that.
So I could actually skip payments from time to time with a cash value policy.
Yes, sir. And a cash value policy, as long as the policy's been in force for 4 to 5 years, it takes 4 to 5 years to start building value in a policy. If you do a whole life policy and only have it for 2 or 3 years, you drop it, you've just paid a lot more money for insurance than you should have just bought term insurance.
Gene, are there rules of thumb that you use when you are helping somebody decide how much life insurance they need to buy?
We do. Normally what I do is I try to find out how much debt someone is in. Your average American, their biggest debt is their home. So if I don't go home today, I want there, at least to be enough life insurance for my wife to pay off the home, pay off any debts such as credit card or furniture or vehicles. You got to have money for final expenses. You got to have money to raise children. Even though Social Security, we hope, would be there. For example, like I have a 3-year-old. If I died tomorrow, my wife would get to draw my Social Security until she's 18. But it's still not going to replace my income. And so if I have life insurance in force and that pays off all my debts and my home and my final expenses, hopefully, she will be okay to continue living and keep the children at the financial standard they've been used to.
Well, what if you're talking to somebody that has some, let's say, group life insurance where they work? Are they okay now automatically?
I recommend to all of my customers to get all the insurance you can at work, because it's cheap, it's pre-taxed, you never miss it because it comes out of your check. But if you retire from that job, a lot of people don't realize if you become disabled from that job, most of the time you don't get to keep that insurance that you had through your employer. You need to have a policy that you own and you control. That's the most important thing that you can do. And like I said again, buy what's comfortable for your budget. A lot of people don't realize that life insurance can actually be inexpensive depending on the amount and depending on the type that you buy. But again, buy what you can comfortably afford, and in the future, you can always change plans.
Now, Gene, a couple of things I wanted to follow up with you, or I want to follow up with you on related to life insurance and just the types of insurance you sell in general. And, the first thing I noticed that your office is in Ashford.
Yes, sir.
And you're from Ashford.
Yes,
But,
sir.
people outside, I'm sure you have customers outside of Ashford.
Oh yeah. I'm actually licensed for the state of Alabama, so I can write insurance anywhere in the state of Alabama. I can actually write life insurance for anyone who lives anywhere in the United States as long as they're in Alabama.
Sure.
I can only do homes and auto if they live in the state of Alabama.
Well, do you always meet with people in Ashford, or do you go to their work or their home to meet with them in Dothan and other places?
Yeah, I'm very flexible. I work at nighttime. I can come to the home. I can meet at the office. I actually met a lady the other day down here at one of our local restaurants. Ate lunch and done it there. So it's a very comfortable environment, whatever the customer feels comfortable with.
Yeah, because I'm sure oftentimes it's a decision that a family probably oftentimes sets down a husband and a wife
Sure.
together and make a decision with.
Yeah, normally when you're talking about the the good old days of selling one-on-one, you want to get the wife and the husband to the kitchen table and sit down and see what they're comfortable with and see what we're looking at, what we need, and go from there.
Well, Gene, is there anything else about life insurance that you think it's important for everybody to know?
Life insurance is becoming more and more important every day because we're actually being able to self-insure ourselves less. In the past, you could actually self-insure yourself. But in today, with the way that the costs of everything are, nothing's cheap anymore. You go to Walmart and you spend $100, $200 and you really didn't get much. And normally the man is the breadwinner of the home, or the woman, whichever one. If they don't come home and they have children at home, and there's no life insurance in force, that monthly Social Security check that spouse will receive because they have the children is not going to be much. Plus, you got house payments, light bills, cell phone bills, they continue coming. Again, I'd love an opportunity in time to talk with anyone about life insurance, and if anyone has something out there they'd like me to look at, I'd love that opportunity also. There's old plans, there's new plans, and again, like I said, the most important thing about life insurance is being able to afford what you buy. That's the most important thing.
Alpha's a strong company too, and in these times it's important to deal with a strong company.
Yes, sir. That's a good point. A lot of people, you see commercials nowadays that you can buy life insurance over the computer, or you can buy life insurance with someone through a phone call. You have no idea the headaches that a spouse has to go through to get a claim paid. If you have insurance with an agent who's out of, say, Minnesota or New York, just because they could save $9 a month or $12 a month. You have a local agent like myself, God forbid something happens, I'm going to know it. I'm going to go ahead and get all the paperwork started. All you got to get me is one little form, and I handle everything.
Well, and insurance is really a relationship business, and it's a real comfort for someone who has that claim to crop up and know that the local agent is there.
Sure.
Giving service.
Sure. And Alpha's been in business, like I said, a long time. Very strong company, A+ rated. We pay our life claims within 7 to 10 working days. And it's just better to deal with someone local on any type of insurance.
Gene, you also deal with business owners, I'm sure, don't
Yep.
you?
So,
Okay. And, well, we've talked about life insurance. You also sell car insurance.
yes, sir.
Alpha was well known for insuring autos and homes, as well as life insurance.
Yes, sir.
And we've talked a little bit in our opening to the show about different aspects of auto insurance. Tell us about sitting down with your average customer and talking about the different coverages. Can you kind of describe for our viewers what those different coverages are?
Sure. On auto policies, you have your full coverage policy. You sit down, you talk with the customer about their comprehensive deductible. You talk with them about their collision deductible. You find out what's best for their situation. A lot of times people are trying in today's society to save a penny or two. So they're going to go with bigger deductibles. And so you have to realize that when you have a claim, the first part is what you've agreed upon. Also in the full coverage auto policies, you have the opportunity to elect tow-in and roadside assistance and also rental. Then you have your uninsured and underinsured that we touched on. And in the state of Alabama, the minimum limits now have been actually increased to $25,000 on the underinsured and uninsured motors. But you can actually, it's so cheap that you really should try to increase that to at least $100,000.
Well, do you have any rules of thumb about, we've talked about liability coverage, for example, and that's to pay for damage that you caused to somebody else, an injury that you caused to somebody else, correct?
Yes.
Do you have any way of determining how much liability coverage someone should buy?
Yes. Normally, again, like I said, when you're dealing with the average person, a lot of times they're looking to do what's best for them at the time. We give them options of what it would cost to have, for example, $50,000, $100,000 liability, or $100,000, $300,000 liability. A lot of times it also has to do with the actual person itself. If they have, if they own a business or if they have anything that someone could actually try to get from them. You need the bigger liability limits you have, the more that you're putting on the company. And like I said, it's very inexpensive to have larger limits of liability and uninsured and underinsured motorists.
Well, and then with the uninsured and underinsured motorist, you said that it's very inexpensive, and that you could even double what you get for a very small price. Aaron, what do you think? Double it, triple it?
Yeah, I think you just have to sit down with your agent and kind of talk it over with your family. And really, I think it's important to get the most coverage that you feel comfortable paying.
Well, Aaron, Gene was a good guest, and here in our legal brief, let's talk about not only the importance of having a good local agent. I think we'd agree that when you have a big claim crop up, you want somebody local to deal with, right?
I agree.
And when something big and important crops up, you're making the claim on your policy, whether it be life, homeowners, or you've had a serious accident. It's important to get legal counsel at that time too. Would you agree?
You're absolutely right.
Tell our viewers how you see the insurance and the attorney working hand in hand in that situation.
Well, David, basically if a person is injured or they're in a situation where they need to make a claim and we'll first talk about injury or death type cases, because those are the cases that you and I deal with day in and day out. You know, if a person finds herself in a situation where they've been injured, maybe even hospitalized, out of work, or if it's a even more serious situation where there's a loss of a loved one, actual death case, and they need to make a claim, well then it's going to be best for them to have an attorney involved that is experienced with personal injury and death, wrongful death type cases, to be able to investigate the case, evaluate the case, and put the time and resources into that case to make sure that they're fairly compensated.
And I know that in this general area, in the Wiregrass area, we've seen a number of serious accidents involving serious injuries and deaths in recent months. And some of those are individuals involved in accidents with other individuals. Some of them are individuals involved in accidents with companies, vehicles driven, owned by companies. But no matter what the case is, the other side in that accident, they're taking steps to look out for their own best interest, right?
Absolutely. And that kind of highlights that importance even more of having an attorney involved.
Yeah, we've seen in cases involving accident and death, the other side, they're beginning their investigation. They're trying to take steps to minimize any cost to themselves.
Well, and also not just minimize it. In some cases, if they can just get out of it altogether, in other words, not pay anything.
Well, the importance of beginning an investigation as soon as possible includes locating witnesses to the accident, getting statements from those witnesses.
That's right. Possibly hiring a expert to reconstruct the accident and locating witnesses, taking pictures, locating evidence, and again, David, you bring up a great point, especially if you're dealing with a large corporation. They're oftentimes going to have corporate representatives, possibly insurance adjusters, and definitely attorneys involved from the very beginning, essentially as soon as it happens. So in so many ways, oftentimes a person doesn't stand a chance to be treated fairly if they're out there trying to go it alone. They need to find an experienced personal injury, wrongful death lawyer just as soon as possible. And again, I know the natural tendency, and it's certainly understandable, is to say, well, let's wait till he or she gets out of the hospital, or we've got all these other arrangements to make, whether it's funeral arrangements or whatever the case may be. But again, the reality is there's things that need to be taken care of, again, as soon as possible.
Well, and some of those arrangements that have to be made have legal ramifications as well.
That's right.
And it's certainly a time when, even though the family may be going through a lot of grief, or they may have a lot on them, it's good to have legal counsel to help guide them through that critical time.
Well, and David, I'll take it a step further, and it's something I know you and I take a lot of pride in. It's something that sometimes a family can turn some of those burdens and some of those responsibilities over to us and allow us to deal with certain aspects of the arrangements that they're making and kind of help. In other words, I oftentimes try to tell people to turn this aspect of it, turn all the legal decisions and that aspect of the situation, whether it's making a claim with an insurance company or making a decision to file a lawsuit, get experts involved and start investigating and putting the case together. Turn that over to us. That's what we do. That's what we deal with every day. Take our advice, and we can help guide along the way to let you know what type of claim you have, how to best set it up and present it, what's in your best interest, and go over all the options and allow the individual or the family to heal and get better, whether it's medical treatment, whether it's grieving, whatever the case may be, and just work through the process together, with the ultimate goal to make sure that they're fairly compensated.
Also, I'd like to reflect back on something that Gene was talking about earlier about the amount of uninsured motorist coverage that somebody might want to look at. I know in the cases that I've handled, the more insurance that my client had, the better it was for them. The serious case where someone has a lot of hospital bills, a lot of medical bills, having $25,000 worth of coverage or $50,000 worth of coverage would just scratch the surface. I'd suggest that you look at $100,000 minimum of underinsured motorist coverage. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've seen cases where a person has easily over, well over 100,000 in medical bills, and in some cases it's much more than that. And then there's cases where people in certain situations would need a lifetime of treatment and care, and $25,000 is just going to come nowhere near that.
And the fact that Gene pointed out that they pay claims every day for uninsured motorists and underinsured motorists really underscores the importance of that type of coverage. There are people driving around all the time with no insurance or with not enough.
Well, and that's something else too, that even if you're dealing with your own insurance company with an underinsured or uninsured motorist claim, it's important in those cases as well, even though you're dealing with your own insurance company, to have an attorney involved to make sure that once again you're fairly compensated and treated fairly. In closing, I just want to say that certainly it's so important to carry enough insurance coverage, but it's also important if you're in that situation where you need to make a claim. It's important, just as important, to have an experienced attorney working with you.
Thanks again to our guest, Gene Mills with Alpha Insurance Company. We'll see you next week on The Legal View.
To submit legal questions you may have, email to aaron@hoggartlandlawfirm.com. Thanks for watching. This has been a production of the Hogg & Gartland Law Firm and WDFX TV, Fox 34.
The Legal View with Hogg and Gartland.